The thing we're going to start with is a little bit of a story. See, my life isn't exactly what you would call normal. I've been through some really weird experiences. I've been through some mystical experiences. I've also done plenty of meditations, hypnosis, plant medicine ceremonies, and safe to say I'm quite visionary. I've also had a lot of almost prophetic dreams as well. So that's where we're going to start. When I grew up, I wasn't normal. I've never been normal since. I live my life on my own terms. I see things, I feel things in a different way. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. It's just something that I go through. And I know that there's a lot of other people that are like me. So maybe this free will versus determinism video that I'm making now will be the thing that helps you recognize that you're not alone. I remember when I was about 7 or 8 years old, staying in our house, going to bed, I used to hear voices. And these voices were sometimes attached to images, to people, to feelings. And the voices predominantly were asking for help. Not just asking for help, but they were begging for help. I remember hearing screaming at the top of their lungs, "Help me, help me." And as a little 8-year-old, there's not much that you can do. I felt pretty helpless, and to be honest, I felt pretty scared. My family went and took me to anger management to try and deal with it. I saw multiple counselors, lots of play-based therapy, drawing-based therapy, and a little bit of talk therapy. Eventually, it stopped. I don't know what happened. I don't know what caused it. But then when I was a teenager, had a girlfriend at the time, and we were very much into some dark shit. We were into, talking to spirits and demons and the Satanic Bible and all that crazy stuff. I think we played with a Ouija board once or twice as well. And there were some pretty hectic scenarios that happened around those circumstances. She would wake up, bolt upright in the middle of the night and have night terrors, and she would scream this like blood-curdling, murderous scream. And it was insane to deal with. She would also, at the edge of her bed was her desk, and she would perch herself in the middle of the night, asleep, or at least unconscious, and stare at me, perched like a gargoyle looking over me. And I still stayed with her. We still had some pretty intense experiences from that. I remember calling in some kind of psychic medium or clairvoyant or something like that, someone to come in and talk to the other side of what was bothering us, and they wouldn't come into the house. I've also had pretty prophetic dreams, like I said earlier. And these dreams, honestly, are cataclysmic, are terrifying in nature. I've had dreams of, again, hearing people scream for help. And it comes from a giant flash of white light. So you guys might have been well versed in the prophecy of the end of the world, from the giant solar flash, the giant EMP that wipes out the world, that wipes out majority of Europe, that sets a fire, a blaze to the countryside. I've seen these sorts of things. And yeah, you might be sitting here going, Dave's a little bit weird, he's a little bit strange, but there's a time and a place for these stories, and I feel like now is the time to be able to vocalize them, because if you're like me, you're not alone. Like, you've been through some weird experiences, you've seen, heard, and felt things that are deemed not normal. Some of my other experiences are plant medicine, like I said, loads of hypnosis, loads of self-hypnosis, doing past life regressions, doing astral projection, attempting to get into my rainbow light body, all these sorts of things. Like, I've experienced a lot. I have an innate, intuition where I can feel and understand when people need me to reach out to them. Like, there's been people in my life where I've just known it's time for a text message, it's time for a call, or rock up to their workplace and just say, "Hey, are you okay? What's going on?" And often it's just enough for them to be able to vent and to go, yeah, I've got some stuff going on. I need some help. I need someone to, to be an ear, to be able to hear something without jumping into my side of the boat and to being involved in my problem with me. And often that's what I do. Often that's what I do as a coach as well. My clients bring to me whatever's going on in the week, and I just hold space for them, and they can vent everything, and then we come up with a solution together. The past life regression stuff, that's interesting. Whether you believe it or not, whether you believe it's just a projection of our mind into, thoughts, feelings, memories, whether they're fabricated or not, that doesn't matter. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about direct experience. And I've lived what I would safely say hundreds of lifetimes as a human, as multiple different entities, creatures, light bodies. Like, it's a big spectrum of what I've experienced. And you can call it poo-poo, you can, call it woo-woo nonsense, call it whatever you want. I know what I've experienced. And some of them, I've gone back into primitive times where we're living as hunter-gatherers, living as Native Americans, living as Native Australians. I've experienced Japanese lifetimes, I've experienced Viking lifetimes, Germanic, Scottish knighthood I've been a part of. Like, there's been a lot that I've experienced through past life regressions. Again, plant medicine ceremonies I've done about 10 or so of them. And again, prophetic, visionary, obviously you're doing a lot of self-work, so lots of self-healing, so on and so forth. However, majority of the messages has come through is I'm here to help people take off their masks, take off their personas, and to not be so attached to the egoic things, and to do shadow work, and to help hold space for humanity to heal, and to literally to evolve to a new place of light. And I say that knowing very well how much I hate using the term love and light, but that's really what we're here to do. I don't like doing it in the sense of, doing a light worker sort of thing. Like, I'm not about that. That's, in my eyes, that's a lot of shit, and it's very fluffy and very airy-fairy. And a lot of the people, in my perspective, they're doing it because they're hiding wounds. They're hiding their own shadow. They're not aware of how to integrate their shadow, and they're projecting this love and light, spiritual consciousness, ego crap onto everyone else. That's a whole other story inside of itself. Through everything that I've seen, it makes me always wonder, do we have free will? Or is everything predetermined? So now, science has said, and we can trust science, but science has said that our genome holds 7 generations worth of DNA inside of us. So your parents, their parents, their parents, and so on and so forth for 7 generations. For both sides of the family tree, for both sides of each split of the family tree, you have inside of you. It's often something that I ponder, is the life that I'm living on my terms because I determine it to be, because of free will, or am I predestined because of my DNA, because of every authority figure, parent figure, father figure, mother figure, that authority piece that has told me things, that has explained things, that has traumatized me, abused me, nurtured me, loved me, made me happy, made me sad, whatever it is, over my 32 years of life, has that led me to get to where I am now because of all those events and all of those sequences inside of my genome? These are some of the things that I ponder, because there's no real definitive truth, is there? Like, there's nothing that's clear cut and you can say, yes, 100% this is truth. What is up may be down for someone else. It's quite complicated, and I don't want to go into too much because it's quite abstract thinking, and I like to make it as practical as possible. However, I believe that our perspective in this 3D reality gives us the ability to see, obviously, height, width, and depth, but be the center point to be able to have all of the perspective, to be able to see this polarity, that polarity, and you to be the determination of where on that spectrum you are. Like, perfect example, this time where I'm filming at the end of 2021, it's all about, the crap that's happening in this year. I'm not going to talk about it because to be honest, I'm done to death with it. It's this versus that, and it's this and then that. And, there's so many polarities being pulled apart, and people aren't recognizing the 2 poles are the exact same thing. In the center is peace. It's like people often talk about love and hate. being polar opposites of one another, when in reality, they're exactly the same thing because they're just opposite spectrums of one another. And where you sit in viewership is all about your perspective of how things work. Do you view things as free will, or are you deterministic, talking about everything that's ever happened in your life? Or can you change on a dime like that and say, here's what I was doing, here's now what I'm going to do? Because the counter argument to that is maybe that was inside of your genome as it was. Maybe it was something that needed to die off inside of you, or it was old programming from your great grandfather that went through World War I, World War II, whatever it is, and has gotten to this place where you finally learned that lesson, packed up the trauma response that was inside of his body that's passed down through his genome, through your father, mother, whatever it is, into you, and you've learned that lesson and you've finally integrated it. Therefore, you can change and pivot directions to do something else. Who knows? Honestly, who knows? There's so much uncertainty. Free will versus determinism. I like to believe that because of this three-dimensional nature, because of this, I guess, perspective that we have, it's not either or. It's both. It always is. You know, you look at the things like the Tao, you look at the yin yang, you look at just the mere philosophy of polar opposites. Inside of the yin yang, there is good and there's bad, and the line dividing the good and evil, the up and down, the polarity, that is the Tao, that is the way. And it's something that flows and permeates through everything. You know, there is a little bit of good in the bad, but there's a little bit of bad in the good. And again, if you follow Dr. John Demartini's work, the main thing that he uses is the perspective shift of changing perspectives, really. It's seeing the good in the bad and the bad in the good to be able to neutralize the perspective of things. Because what you perceive is only half the picture. If you perceive things as all good, no bad, only up, never down, always this, never that, you've only got 50% of the picture. Your map of the world and what you refer to be able to navigate through life is only at best 50% complete. You could be 50% wrong. You could also be 50% right. But if you don't work on changing your perspective of polarity and understanding both sides of the equation, how are you meant to move forward in life? It's interesting. It's an interesting thing to ponder. So what do you think it is? Do you think we have free will, the ability to choose, do, have, be anything, and be truly limitless? Or are you limited by circumstance? Are you limited by your social economic status? Are you limited because of where you live? Are you limited because of the circumstances, or are you limitless because of the circumstances? I mean, I don't really have the answer. We can speculate a lot. We can have a lot of intellectual masturbation around it, around deciphering through science, through our minds, to be able to talk about things that are philosophical in nature, that have no necessarily real world application and practicality. Do we have free will? Is everything predetermined? Do we have destiny? I don't know. I think it's a little bit of both. What do you think? I like to believe that, yes, I have 7 generations worth of DNA inside of me, inside of my genome, and that I am doing shadow work, healing trauma of my past generations, therefore healing my grandmother, my aunts, uncles, everyone in my genome, because I'm the one choosing to do that stuff now. It's a little bit woo-woo, but that's what I'm working with. All of my experiences in everything that I've ever been to, including the void of non-duality, where there was nothingness but everything all at once and not at all. It just was. There was no I, there was no separation. It was just, the only word I can describe was love. That's it. Just vast nothing love. And I remember coming back out of that state of non-duality where I felt an I, like I felt the I that I am. And I understood deeply the intricacies of infinite space and time and consciousness and everything like that, and it quickly went away. I remember walking outside. It was a full moon. I put my hand on this tree and my bare feet are in the grass. And I looked up and there's the branching of the trees and I could see the beautiful full moon right there. And I looked up and I just started crying tears of gratitude and I was so happy. And then I looked at my hand on the tree, and started crying harder because I didn't know where I ended and it began. Same thing, looked at my feet. I didn't have feet. There was no my feet. It was just feet. And at the same time, because I was standing on the grass and I was standing on the earth, I was the earth. So is there really any separation between the two polarities? Or is it just a distinction that human beings have made in this 3D space? I mean, I certainly don't have any answers. Like I said, we can speculate at best. We can tell stories of our experiences, and we can remember. Our experiences mean something. There's a reason why human beings have evolved with an oral tradition. Why stories, metaphors, allegories have been passed down around the campfire and have a way of sticking with you. I'm sure you can remember all of the stories that were told to you, whether they were written down in a book, but they were read to you. They were explained to you. They had nuances, they had story, they had impact and meaning inside of it. You can remember those ones. Whether it's the simple little ones like nursery rhymes that are in song form, or whether it's old folk tales. You can remember them. You remember the meaning behind them, at least. Maybe that's what we're meant to do. Maybe we're meant to talk about our experiences more. Maybe we're meant to share through the tradition of orating about what we've been through, what we've learnt. Perhaps the thing around free will versus determinism is to be able to get people together to sit around and converse, in person preferably, because we all know how much everyone needs everyone else. There's no separation. There's no black, white, Asian, Hispanic. There's nothing. It's just the human race. We are all one. And it's like the great Australian song says, we are one, but we are many. I think that's where we're going to leave it. I don't have an answer for you. This is up to you to be able to figure out for yourself. Whether you're in the middle and you believe it's a little bit of both, or you're complete deterministic, or you're complete free will. It's completely up to you, as is everything else in life. It's on your shoulders. It's your responsibility to figure out what you want, where you perceive, how you perceive, why you perceive that way. And enjoy it. And whatever you learn, teach it to someone else. Because that lesson could be the thing that helps them have an epiphany that dramatically helps them impact the lives of everyone else around them. We're all humans. We're not getting out of this alive. So, with that, I'll talk to you guys again later.